Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point. Brian Fisher is my name. You're listening to Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio. We're not going to make the mistake here that the priests and the prophets of Ezekiel's day made. Notice what he excoriated them for. Her priests have done violence to my law or to my word and have profaned my holy things. They have made no distinction between the holy and the common, neither have they taught the difference between the unclean and the clean. And her prophets have smeared whitewash for the politicians, seeing false visions, divining lies for them, saying, "Thus says the Lord God," when the Lord has not spoken. So we're not going to make that mistake here at AFR Talk. We are going to do the responsibility that's entrusted to priests and prophets. We are going to teach the word. We are not going to profane the holy things of God. We are going to make distinctions between the things the scriptures say are holy and the things that are unholy. In other words, homosexual behavior is not the moral alternative, not a moral equivalent to heterosexual marriage. It's not. There is a difference. One is clean, the other is unclean. One is holy, the other is unholy. And what our culture is doing is blurring, erasing those distinctions. That's why the president can go out and talk about how proud he is of someone whose sole claim to fame is that he engages in sexually deviant behavior. Now, you think for a minute about a parallel. You go to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and we know, I won't take time to go over the details here, the statistical details, but it's clear from the CDC that homosexual behavior is as risky, as dangerous to human health as injection drug abuse. The FDA will not allow anyone to donate blood if they've ever taken taken money for sex, if they've ever engaged in prostitution. So the three groups that can't donate blood, automatically prohibited: homosexuals, injection drug users, and prostitutes. And because all three of those represent, those behaviors, those lifestyles represent such a threat to human health. Now imagine, just for the sake of argument, and see, this is one of the reasons we're opposed to homosexual behavior, is because it's a hazard to human health. Now, suppose yesterday that Jason Collins, instead of coming out as a homosexual, he came out as a male prostitute, or he came out as an injection drug abuser. Would President Obama be coming out and talking about how proud he is of Jason Collins and what a role model he is for America? I don't think so, because he would understand that those are behaviors that should not be idolized. They shouldn't be celebrated. They shouldn't be endorsed. They shouldn't be normalized because they kill people. Well, homosexual behavior fits into exactly the same category. Now, you think about what President Obama said. He was an unfortunate, well, I won't even go into that on family radio. He used a very unfortunate choice of phrase in his comments about Jason Collins. But President Obama says at the end of his statement that we judge people on the basis of their character. Notice what President Obama is saying. We judge people on the basis of their character. That's exactly what Martin Luther King said. This is exactly what Jesus said, exactly what the Bible teaches. So here President Obama is basically agreeing with us that it is appropriate to judge people on the basis of character, and sexual conduct is a key component. It's one dimension of character. Now, Chris Broussard is the guy I believe that's showing the real courage here. Number to call if you want to weigh in on this Jason Collins business. Chris Broussard, clip number 2, Rob. Chris Broussard has been with ESPN since 2004, I believe. And here's the deal. He was invited onto this program. It's called Outside the Lines. He was invited on this program to give a diversity of perspectives to Jason Collins coming out. That's why he was invited on. He didn't just inject his comments into there willy-nilly. He was invited. Here, this is World Magazine today, a piece by Lee Jones. He and L.Z. Granderson was the other guy in this back and forth. He and L.Z. Granderson, who are friends, were invited onto the show to offer opposing viewpoints on the issue. So Chris Broussard was doing what he was asked to do, what he was invited to do. L.Z. Granderson is a friend of Chris Broussard. They're buddies. L.Z. Granderson is homosexual. Chris Broussard is not. Chris Broussard believes homosexuality is a sin, but L.Z. Granderson is a friend of his. They respect each other. They have tolerance for each other's beliefs. And Granderson said exactly the same thing. He said that about Chris Broussard. So here's what Chris Broussard said. He was invited to do this now by ESPN. Here's what he had to say.
Personally, I don't believe that you can live an openly homosexual lifestyle or an openly premarital sex between heterosexuals. If you're openly living that type of lifestyle, then the Bible says you know them by their fruits. It says that, that's a sin. And if you're openly living in unrepentant sin, whatever it may be, not just homosexuality, adultery, fornication, premarital sex between heterosexuals, whatever it may be, I believe that's walking in open rebellion to God and to Jesus Christ. So I would not characterize that person as a Christian because I don't think the Bible would characterize him as a Christian.
Now let me ask that question. Did Chris Broussard on ESPN say anything in that 45 seconds you disagree with? He didn't say anything that I disagreed with. That was a clear statement of biblical truth. It was a statement of his own opinion, which is what he was invited on the program to do. And then when he comes out and simply declares the truth, the entire secular left lands on him like a falling safe. The guy will be lucky if he has a job by the end of the day, the way the left has absolutely unloaded on him. And ESPN is even out there saying, we regret. They use the word regret, talking about what Broussard said. We regret that a respectful discussion became a distraction. ESPN is fully committed to diversity. That is a flat, bald-faced lie. They are not committed to diversity. And don't let anybody sell you that bilge or that swill. When they say they're committed to diversity, they most certainly are not. How do we know that? Because ESPN has absolutely no room in its world for the views of Chris Broussard. So instead of having diversity, which is a respect for a multiplicity of points of view, there is this soul-crushing monoversity that they impose on anybody else, and they punish anyone who would dare to disagree with them. Let's grab clip number 10 if we can, Rob, and then we'll go to some phone calls, 888-589-8840. I would love to get your take on this whole Jason Collins thing and what do you think about Chris Broussard. I mean, just bringing it on ESPN, telling it like it is. Homosexuality is a sin. I believe in the Bible. I'm a Christian. This is what it teaches. Love to know what you think about Chris Broussard and what you think is going to happen to him. What's your guess about what's going to happen to Chris Broussard? But it's Good Morning America this morning. And again, we've talked about this before, but there is a false parallel between race and homosexual behavior. Race is innate. You're born that way. It's immutable. You never can change the color of your skin. Sexual behavior is clearly a matter of choice. Even Jason Collins indicates that by his own testimony. There were impulses that he resisted for a long period of time. So he's admitting, look, sexual behavior in the end is a matter of choice. They are not equivalent. As Colin Powell said, it's convenient but invalid. But Good Morning America, they're right out there leading the charge to draw a parallel and draw lessons from it. Let's listen.
Just like a generation ago, sports so often a reflection of society, but it's been sports figures like Jackie Robinson, who've so often led society. Jason Collins taking a first step for so many to come. That's
Good Morning America this morning, again, drawing that false parallel between race and homosexual behavior. They are not equivalent. They are not the same. So we need to expose the lie that ESPN believes in diversity of any kind. They don't. They believe in a soul-crushing monoversity, and Chris Broussard is there to bear witness to that. And this Jason Collins apparently has only been out for about a year, and Chris Broussard in his comments said, look, he's not that good anymore. I mean, Chris Broussard said, look, this guy is at the tail end of his career. And I think that's what's going on here. This is just a marketing move on Jason Collins' part. He knows that his career is over. He's 34. He's averaging 1.1 points a game. Nobody's going to want a 34-year-old retread. He had a good, serviceable career as a journeyman. He's been with 6 teams, let go by the last one. He's got no future. This was his only shot at 15 minutes of fame, and it worked. Cover of Sports Illustrated, phone call from President Obama, a tweet from Michelle Obama, lionized everywhere he goes. Meanwhile, Chris Broussard is being demonized by everybody across the fruited plain. Now, here's one other thing I want you to get, and I make this point in my column, and we'll take phone calls after the break, 888-589-8840. Jason Collins proves that nobody is born that way. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is the significant thing about this. Don't forget this. Jason Collins proves that people are not born that way. How do we know that? Because he has an identical twin by the name of Jaron. He is an identical twin. They share exactly the same DNA. That's why they're the same skin color. That's why they're the same height. That's why they can be confused for each other. That's why they both have roughly the same athletic ability. They are identical twins. That's what happens when you got DNA. We've talked about this before, so I don't want to belabor it. But you remember, you've got these researchers, Peter Bierman at Columbia and Hannah Bruckner at Yale. They used data from the National Longitudinal Study of Adolescent Health to examine the concordance rate between identical twins. Now, if homosexuality is genetically caused, the concordance rate should be 100%. If one twin is homosexual, the other ought to be 100% of the time, but instead they found that the concordance rate among males is just 6.7%. People are not born that way. Jason Collins is proof. Back in 2.